Welcome back to Briggs on Books, the international talk show where I get to talk to authors from all over the world. And I know a big chunk of our viewership are aspiring authors who've been writing and writing and writing and trying to get to the end of the writing process. And when you get to the end of the writing process, there's other processes you're going to have to face and learn about, like how do you get published and how do you get exposure and stuff like that. So to that end, for that purpose, I like to bring authors on to our talk show who've actually done it, who finished writing a book and actually got it published, got it out there, and now they're coming on our show to tell our viewers about it. Our next guest not only did it once, she's done it multiple times. Anise Eden. Welcome, Anise.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah. First, for our viewers, we're not having technical difficulties. We're just keeping the author a little bit anonymous. So if you don't see her moving, it's because it's a still photo. Tell our viewers where you are, Anise.
Yeah, so I live in Mallow, which is a small town in County Cork, Ireland.
Wow. And you don't seem to have much of an Irish accent.
Right, amazing.
But you've lived
No,
there
I've lived here.
couple years?
I've been here for 6 years,
Yeah.
and I'm originally from the Mid-Atlantic U.S., so I've lived all the way from Washington, D.C. up to New York.
I see. And hopefully you could pick up a little of that Irish twang. That would be cool.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Now, as I said, not only have you completed a book, got it published, got it out there, how many books have you written?
I have written 6 altogether,
Six,
and
yeah.
5 of them have been published.
Right. Now, here is, by the way, here's an image of Anise's most recent book, Dead Keen. Is that right? Do I get that?
That's correct,
right
yes.
order? Tell us a little bit about the book.
So this is the second book in the Things Unseen series, and it's about a Washington, D.C. psychotherapist who goes with her colleague and new boyfriend, Dr. Cornelius O'Brien, to Ireland to help his brother with a mysterious psychiatric condition and to take a break after a hairy few weeks back at home. But they never imagined that their trip to Ireland would lead them into the deadliest peril they've ever faced.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a thriller with a romantic subplot.
Now, is it mostly based in Ireland or Washington, D.C., or both?
So the first book in the series, Dead Sound, is based in Washington, D.C., and the second book is set right where I live in North Cork, Ireland.
Nice. Now, I have the cover of Dead Sound on the screen, so that is based in D.C., and then
That's great, yeah.
Dead Keen is mostly in Ireland then.
Absolutely, yep.
Now, shall I read these in order?
You know, I would recommend reading them in order just because it gives you the richest experience to follow the character development. On the other hand, they are standalone books as well, so you could pick one up in any part of the series and you would get a good read out of it.
And by the way, I think both are on audiobook.
That's correct, yes. They're both on Audible.
Audible. Thank you for doing that, by the way, because when people get older like me, it's so hard to read books anymore. It's just the type small and it's a chore. So, and I get so many more books read now that I'm listening on Audible. So.
Yeah, and I have a wonderful narrator, Lisa Kay, who just does a fantastic job with them.
Yeah, I've noticed in the Audible books, when there's a good narrator, they really do different voices and stuff like that, really capture a lot. Tell us about, I'm going to go back here. Here's Dead Keen. They're in D.C. I hope I'm not giving away anything. I just read a little blurb on Amazon. They go to Ireland. There's some mysterious, as you said, mysterious illness, psychological illness. And I guess, like all thrillers, they work through problems and issues.
That's exactly right. So one of the things that I really love doing in my books is keeping people on the edge of their seats. I'm one of those people who, when I'm watching like a police procedural, I can always tell who's the killer right away.
Yeah.
I can always pick it up in the first 10 minutes, and I hate that. That's so disappointing. So I try to keep my plots really unexpected, a lot of twists and turns where people don't see them coming, but they're still really believable and authentic to the story and the characters. And then I like to make sure that each book has a really satisfying ending as well.
Yeah. Now, did I read that you have some kind of background as a psychologist?
As a psychotherapist, yes, I'm a
Psychotherapist.
clinical social worker, and I worked in psychotherapy and mental health for many years. And now I'm a teacher. I teach at university and do mental health advocacy.
Huh. So you're in your books, you know what you're talking about, I guess.
Well, I know a bit. I mean, certainly don't know everything. No one does
Yeah.
about mental health for probably any topic, but I kind of know where to look to get the answers. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I love reading books that are set in Ireland or Washington, D.C. or any city, but would people from that area recognize places that you mentioned in the book?
Oh, absolutely. I love to keep things grounded in reality. So all the towns that I mention more or less are real. And if there's a restaurant I mentioned somewhere, I usually change the name and some of the details, but generally you can go to that spot and you'll find a restaurant, you know. So yeah, I like to keep things grounded in reality like that.
Now, the first book, and here's the cover again, Dead Sound, is in Washington, D.C., and it's a crime thriller as well.
Absolutely, yes.
And then Dead Keen, which is set in Ireland, a crime thriller. And I'm sure you had to research a bit, but is there a big difference in the crime solving in D.C. as it is in Ireland?
Um, I'd say that the crimes and the plots are so different that it's hard to compare the two books, for sure. But in both cases, we're dealing with a psychotherapist and a doctor. He's an endocrinologist, and they're just living their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and they get pulled into these Byzantine situations and really suspenseful plots. So it's sort of ordinary people, but put in extraordinary
Yeah.
circumstances.
Now, we have your web address on the screen, aniseeden.com. Great web address, by the way. Um, what would our viewers find if they visit that website?
So you can find information on all of my books as well as links to buy them. There's also information about me, frequently asked questions. I'm also one of those people who makes playlists for my books.
Mm,
So if you're on Spotify, you can listen to playlists, Media
nice.
Kit, reviews, all kinds of stuff like that.
Now, somebody told me that sometimes you put a free link on your site to the Audibles.
Yes. Well, what I do is if someone is interested in listening to an Audible audiobook, they can email me using my contact
Hmm.
form on my website. And if I have any available codes, I will definitely send them out.
How fun. How nice of you that is.
It's my pleasure. I'm all about, connecting with readers. So
That's
anything I
great.
can do to make books more accessible, I'm happy to do.
Now, what's your next book? I bet you're working on one right now.
I actually finished it recently. It's called Dead Late, and it's the last book in this trilogy. It's set in Cork City, and it's another thriller with a romantic subplot. And once again, it's a completely different plot. It connects back to the first book, Dead Sound, so it kind of brings everything to a close, but hopefully in a way that people will not be able to predict.
Now, I like to ask authors this, as I said earlier, we have so many aspiring authors watching our show. So you have three books. Did you know when you started that there were going to be three books?
Well, I knew I had three books in my head. I
Okay.
didn't know if they would get published.
Okay.
So I have another trilogy that my first outing into publishing was a previous trilogy, Paranormal Romantic Suspense. So I think in trilogies, and I just had an idea of following this couple over three books, and so I had a rough idea. But like you were saying before we started, publishing is a different animal. So
Yeah.
whether it was going to come to fruition, I had no idea when I started.
Now, how do you track your characters and keep the continuity?
I'm not one of those people who makes character sketches.
Hmm.
The characters more or less land in my head fully formed, and then I just sort of get to know them and uncover them and their personalities as they develop over the books.
Mhm.
I do keep a little bit of a sketch in terms of their development, where I want them to go in each book in terms of that. But I just hold them in my head really
Yeah,
until I'm finished with the series.
that's great. Now, last thought on that subject. Do you use, when you're finishing the book, do you send it out to readers or people you know that would read the book and scour it for errors or inconsistencies?
Well, I certainly would. Yes, if I finished a manuscript, I definitely want another pair of eyes on it before I start querying agents and publishers. So I have a couple of friends who are really good readers, they're just really trusted readers, and some of them are writers, so we might exchange manuscripts. And it's definitely a good idea to get another pair of eyes, if for no other reason than to give me confidence.
Yeah. And then once you get the publisher, does it go through an editing process?
Yes, there's quite an extensive editing process. So um, there's typically 4 rounds of editing, 4 to 5 rounds of editing
Wow.
once it gets accepted by the publisher. And at least that's been my experience. I know it's probably different for everybody.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
that's fantastic. Each round is different and brings so much more insight and feedback. And I just love that process.
And besides just the obvious trying to catch errors, do they actually recommend changing parts or developing a character more or something like that?
They certainly can. I haven't really had that experience as much as I've had people talk about, this doesn't seem realistic to me, or this particular detail is not correct when it comes to this process. Again, you can't be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
So I think, for example, with my first book, Dead Sound, there's a scene that takes place in the White House, and I didn't have the right details around what the security would be like trying to get into the White House. Unfortunately, one of my beta readers was an expert. So just really getting people who know their stuff to read your book is incredibly helpful.
Yeah. Well, for our viewers, she did it. Stick with it. I love how it sounds like you come with your book fully formed and the characters fully formed, as there's not a lot of suggestions on, changing those or developing them differently. So that's amazing how your mind works. Any last thoughts? I know we're kind of going overtime, but you're a fascinating person. I would just want to give a couple more minutes. Any last thoughts you want to share with our viewers about your books or about you or the
You know what?
process?
I would just say when I published my first book, I had over 100 rejections before I found my agent. And with this series, I had over 50. So I would just say persistence is really important,
Yeah.
and to just believe in yourself and your work. And for those who are interested in my books, uh, I've had readers tell me that they're very similar to J.D. Robb, Karen Robards, Kelly Armstrong. So if you're fans of those writers, you might be a fan of mine.
Yeah. And I'll go as far as giving you a little commercial promo and say, it's Mother's Day. Order some of these books for Mother's Day. And by the way, whenever I order books, I don't order one. I always order 3 or 4 copies because I want people around me reading the same book while I'm reading it. So go to, can they order the books on your website?
No, but you can get links to Amazon
Yeah.
and everywhere else that they're for sale on there. Yep.
There you go. Go to Amazon and click 4 times, 5 times at least. Thank you very much, Anise. By the way, you're in County Cork, Ireland. What time is it there?
It is 8:20 p.m. here now.
So it's 12:20 here, so about 8 hours then.
8 hours.
It sounds like you're the same time as London.
That's correct. Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much for staying up this late. 8 o'clock, I guess, isn't that late, but I sure appreciate you coming on the show. And for our viewers, stick around because we're going to have another author right after this.
Thank you so much for